Through all corners of the universe, there echoes the heartbeat of power. A pulsing bond shared by all things. Come, let's embark on a journey and discover the stories entwined with strength. Hello, my friends out there in this universe of power. Welcome back to Titan Talk. It's been a couple weeks since the last episode, and I'm ready to get back and fill you guys in on what's been happening in my life, touch on some things that's been going on around the world in strength, and just around the world in general. I've got a good episode lined up for you. Going to hit a bunch of different topics today, so let's dive in and get started. Well, what have I been up to since the last time we talked here on Titan Talk? Things have been happening in life as they always do. In moving up here to Indiana, one of the things that I felt right off the bat coming from South Texas to the upper Midwest is starting from scratch in a lot of ways. I don't really have that network of close family and friends that I was so comfortable with in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. So one of the things that I have been trying to do and be a little bit more proactive about is to really immerse myself in the community. It was something that I always thrived on. I guess if you ask my wife or some people, I tend to be a little bit more extroverted, and I feed off the energy that I pull from the community around me. It's always something that I have enjoyed, and to not have that necessarily as an ever-present factor in life up here, it was sorely missed. So I've been making some efforts to kind of put those roots in the ground and have that part of my life grow a bit more. Aside from going out to different social events that the city here in Bluffton has put on, which my hat's off to Bluffton, by the way. This city, it sits at about 10,000 people, and 10,000 people coming from the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, especially Edinburgh. The cities themselves are in the upwards of 100,000 people range for the population. So 10,000, it does have a lot of small town vibes, but we have a Main Street, we have a Walmart. 10,000 people seems to be that Goldilocks zone of where it's not too many people to where the city can put a lot of its resources back into growing the community and providing a nice quality of life for all of its community members, but also maintaining that small town charm, which is indeed just that. It's very charming. So the city has put a lot of different social events that I've really enjoyed making the most of the summer with my daughter in participating in. But that's just little things. I've also wanted to put my self out there and get to work in ways that can involve me being an active member of the community. So it didn't take long for me to want to seek out a gym. So, I mean, that's been my life for the last 15 years. It's very strength, performance, and fitness driven. I wanted to find somewhere where I could immerse myself into the community that way. And it didn't take long for me to do some research and find a haven of fitness and strength. Just down the road, about 5 minutes from our home here, Victory Gym in Bluffton. It's a nice boutique gym. It's not a hardcore dungeon in the wall strength and performance center. It's a boutique gym aimed at catering to a wide demographic of the populace, and everyone is there to better themselves. It's a close-knit community. From the second I looked them up on Google and social medias, I could see that community thriving, and it doesn't matter to me if it's not a hardcore strength gym. I've put in my time with the hardcore strength crowd. I want to have that community aspect, that family and that home away from home. Honestly, that was one of my favorite parts about owning and operating AlphaFit for the 7 to 8 years that I did, is we fostered and nourished a growing and thriving community there at the gym. And I missed it. I missed working with people and working out together, and just this coming together of constructive efforts. Especially, I've become a morning bird so early in the day to kickstart every day off on that right foot. I have really enjoyed my time at Victory Gym so far. And if you're ever in the Bluffton area and you want a nice place to train, that is my recommendation. So I'm looking forward to many more memories there with Victory and whatever is to come on the horizon on that front. We'll talk about it some more in future episodes. But another big thing that has happened in my life, a huge thing, my daughter started school. It's crazy. It's crazy. Not like, didn't think this was going to be happening so fast and so soon, but time flies without any regard for us mere mortals on this earth, especially for us parents. It is such a fleeting resource. And yeah, my little daughter just started school, and oh, it was for her it was very easy. She's very excited, ready to kickstart her education and learn and be around kids and foster that curiosity. Um, but after dropping her off on that first day, she's prancing to the front door, just as happy as can be. My wife and I went together to go drop her off, and once that door closed to the car and we saw our daughter go into the school door and that door closed, I was hit very hard by a tremendous wall of emotions. And, you can be the toughest person in the world, but when your little one is growing up fast before your eyes, I have become such an emotional softy in my parenthood so far. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I find myself crying at movies and books more often, but wow, dropping my kid off at school for that first day, my mind did this thing where it fast forwarded and flashed ahead of every instance in life where I'm going to be saying goodbye to her and watch her grow up. Whether it's starting off her first day of school ever, whether it's starting high school, starting college, going off to maybe study abroad somewhere, or her eventual wedding day if she chooses to get married in life. Yeah, my mind was playing through all that, and I was an absolute wet, sobbing mess on the whole way home. But it's a monumental week for this little family unit, and I'm so proud and so thankful for the school system up here. It seems to be a very nice and nourishing environment. And what more could parents want, especially taking that leap of faith in putting your own child in the public education system? It is a leap of faith, and it's scary in a lot of ways. For a long time, I thought I was going to be homeschooling her. But, life happens. Parents are working. Parents are trying to grow their own careers, and you don't want the child to miss out on that social aspect. We would go out to playgrounds, go on bike rides, try to get her to be with different kids throughout the day, but nothing compares to being fully immersed in that school environment. So yeah, that was a big happening in my own life. Very thankful for how the first week has gone for her. She's excited. I'm excited for her. I love those conversations in the car on the way home of what excited you about school today, what made you smile, what was something extra awesome that you learned, just all of that. I love it. I'm here for it, and I am so excited for every little milestone along the way of her growing curiosity and education. So, onwards to the rest of the episode. I have frequently got the question, it's a silly question in my opinion, and I'll go into it why, but from different people, whether they were fans across my career, whether they're friends, or whether they're just people who came into the awareness of the strongman circle later on in life and are curious about how things are panning out for all of their favorite athletes to watch. I have been asked the question repeatedly, Gabe, when are you going to get big again? And at first when I hear it, it's like, okay, well, way to just punch me in the gut. No, I'm not really affected by it. But at the same time, at face value, it's like, okay, you want to pull that card, huh? But what it makes me think of is how extreme of a sport and a pursuit strongman is, to where when people ask when you're going to get big again, and when that's asked towards me, a 6'2", 260-pound individual, when am I going to get big again? The realistic perception of what big is kind of biased a little bit. And I feel, looking back on my strongman career, I really put my time in. I walked around on this planet at 300 plus pounds for a very long amount of time. I think the first time that I weighed 300 pounds was somewhere in like 2015, 2016. And there were some times in like 2024 that I might have trimmed down a little bit. There were some times, of course, in 2025 and this year. But about a full decade of my life was spent living the 300-pound life. I put in my time. That is tough. And I remember at my heaviest, 333 pounds. And then when I started coming down from that, every 5-pound increment that I decreased in body weight was unlocking a whole new facet of life in terms of the quality that I was getting back, the ability, the comfort of living life. It's big. And that's, it's one thing to have the strength and the ability in the gym, but you're only in there for a small portion of each day. Even if it's a long training session, 3 hours, that's 1/8 of the day. You still have the other 7/8 to feel good about yourself. So I'm putting my time with that. And my first answer to that question, when are you going to get big again, is like, bro, I am big. I still feel very big. I can't run a consistent 7-minute mile. I can't even run that for 1 mile, whereas someone who weighs sub 200 pounds might be able to do so. I am happy when I'm able to have a day where I can do more than 5 reps of pull-ups at one time. And that's not the case more often than not at that heavy 300-pound life. So quality of life is great. If you're asking me that question, when I'm going to get big again in terms of nearing the 300-pound range, I don't know if I ever am. Life is too good. Life is too good. I'm only getting older. I have felt several setbacks along the way in terms of health, whether it's physical injuries or whether it was my body redlining because I was living that heavy lifestyle. It's hard to look back and want that again, knowing the repercussions and the consequences of choosing to embark down that path. Having already walked it for 10 years of my life, I am okay with closing that chapter. So when I get asked that question, I just find it absurd because realistically, for a male, I feel like anyone over 200 pounds is big. Anyone over whatever the average height, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm guessing it's somewhere around like 5'8" to 5'10", somewhere around there for males, depending on the country or the part of the world that you're in. Anyone above that is big. So at 6'2", 260 pounds, I still am big. And by the way, if you haven't followed me on Instagram, I did finally step on a scale for the first time in all of 2026. I got my InBody done at Victory Gym. Fantastic data points to have, by the way, especially as I track my progress over the coming months. But 259.6 pounds body weight, 16% body fat. I feel pretty damn good about those things. I know that I feel very healthy. I have loved running. I can run over 8 miles at a time without stopping. That is vitality and that is capability. And when I think of what matters most to me in life from here forward, it is capability. It is work capacity. It is my livelihood and how well and effectively I can keep up with my child as she ages, not just through her childhood, but through her adult life. I have visions of being able to summit peaks all around the country and the world with my daughter. And she's probably not going to be doing too much of that as a child, but when she's grown up, the sky's the limit, literally and figuratively, of course. But I mean, that's what I want to be around for. So when I weigh those in terms of what I could possibly do in strongman as being very big, it just pales in comparison. I've done so much already that I can be proud of. The internet, the keyboard warriors, the critics are always going to be like, oh, well, you were so close to this, or you never made it to finals at Worlds or whatever. I made it to World's Strongest Man. That alone was my goal when I set off down this path. And to know that I achieved that I held, okay, on that note, I still am holding the 18-inch axle deadlift world record. And that is pretty freaking cool, even though I think it was really cool to have it be dethroned by Roy Orantia out of Arizona not too long ago. But there was a rule at Static Monsters that dictates now for a world record to count from 2026 and on, it has to be done at the Static Monsters World Championships. So, unfortunately for Roy, his 1,200-pound 18-inch axle did not officially count. It's an unofficial record. And seeing the actual leaderboards as they still stand, I am still the holder of the 18-inch axle deadlift world record, which is cool in one sense, but I know Roy has in the tank, and I've reached out to Roy personally, like congratulating him and letting him know that he has a huge supporter in me. So it's only a matter of time before Roy just officially dethrones that. I know he's prepping right now with some absolutely monumental lifts, not just for statics, but to really put his name out there as one of the strongest athletes in the world. And I hope that he just stays healthy so he can keep shattering whatever ceiling he has over his own limitations, because that guy is amazing. Look him up if you haven't already. That's Roy Orrantia. He trains out of Arizona. I think he has the Instagram handle of the world's strongest schizophrenic. I'm not 100% sure on that, but Roy Orrantia. Shout out to Roy. Big love to him. But yeah, I held a world record. I competed at Worlds. I got to pull 1,000 pounds in front of a giant crowd in an arena. I got to travel to Fefjord, Norway, and compete at the Stones of Strength World Championship there. I am totally fine closing the chapter of my competitive life and using my knowledge and experience and expertise to help other people achieve similar goals or similar strengths and capabilities. So I just thought that was silly, especially with how many times I get asked that question. Like, no, I am still big. Your perception of what big has been jaded by the extremity of strongman as a sport. So next, I want to talk about something big that happened in the strongman world. The Husafell Stone, the legendary stone out of Iceland, the stuff of myth and legend. It was weighed. Someone, a collective of individuals, shout out to the Stones of Strength podcast. They went out along with some select other individuals from Iceland themselves and some other strength and stone enthusiasts, and they took a scale out there to weigh the Husafell Stone. And this caused a little bit of ruckus in the strongman community. So they went out there, they took, I believe it was a fishing scale. It was one of those hanging scales that you can hoist it up, connect it to a bar, and attach it to whatever you're weighing. And under the supervision of some esteemed members of the Icelandic strength community, they were able to safely, conducively weigh this historic monument of strength and figure out what it exactly weighs. So it had been known, quote unquote, for a while, that the Husafell, the full Styrker Husafell Stone, weighed 409 pounds. And that is something that everyone, myself included, whenever we were training for the Husafell, or I had the Husafell Stone replicas made for Beer Stone 2022. They looked exactly like the Husafell Stone. We had some that were light at 200 pounds, some that were medium at 300 pounds, and then we had some that were 409 pounds to make it the exact weight of what the Husafell weighed. David Accardo of Sticks and Stone did a phenomenal job making these replicas at 409 pounds. But that was also something for people who did not have the ability to go all the way to Iceland and lift the actual Husafell Stone. That was the number that they were training. 409 pounds is what I need to be able to lift if I'm going to go all this way and lift that stone effectively. But it turns out the stone weighs 346 pounds, más o menos, all right? 346 pounds. And when you have a myth or a legend that is diminished by the reality, that can step on some people's toes in some way. The real traditionalists, those who are there for the glory and the prestige of the legend and all of its splendor and its 409 pounds of majesty, when it comes out weighing 60 pounds less, that makes some people feel like a little bit of that luster or that allure was taken away. But that's a tragic way of thinking. And I can understand it. I can understand it. You hold this monumental achievement at such high grace, and to have it even slightly lowered, kind of, it could take away from a very prideful individual. Pride to a fault, mind you, but it could. I can see it. I can understand it. I can empathize with it. But that's not the reality. And we live in a time and an era where we have tools, we have understanding, we have a communication network worldwide that allows us to get down to the nitty-gritty real aspects of what things truly are and measure them to a T, whether it's weighing these monumental stones of strength or whether it's accurately measuring the height of a mountain or whether it's carbon dating some sort of artifact to see exactly how old it is. We live in an era where we can get these concrete figures and kind of take some of the imaginative aspect away and get really in touch with what things actually are, what they're comprised of, and what the reality of every undertaking is surrounding whatever that point of curiosity is. And I think that's an amazing thing. I am a natural scientist at heart. I love understanding things, and to have a deep understanding of what something truly is, you need to know exact details about it. So scientific and historical accuracy are very important. And I think they take a little bit more priority over maintaining every single detail about legends and myths. And even more so, what has come in the aftermath of the Stones of Strength podcast crew and whoever else was involved is they have backtracked historical logs of the Husafell's legend, the Husafell Stone's legend, and different pieces of history, different articles, different times all along the last couple of centuries where this thing was weighed and given a stone weight. And it's gotten skewed over time. You have different units of measurements, whether it's weight in the metric of stones or more Icelandic traditional labels. I can't remember what it's called, and I'm sorry, I should have had that here in front of me right now. But it was an obscure metric of measurement. And when you convert that to pounds or to kilograms, sometimes there's a little bit extra that kind of, it's like the extra change that you get from a transaction. It gets discarded and things kind of don't get accounted for. So I believe it was something like 150, 130-ish years ago, the stone came out featured in some type of record where it had the exact weight, 346 pounds. And over the years, as it was weighed again, because it was measured in these more obscure metrics, it started growing from 346 to 380 to 390, and then it's somewhere along the last 50 or so years, it got to that full 409, and everyone just assumed that that was it because that was the most recent recording of what it actually weighed. But if you follow the historical data, there is a paper trail of it actually weighing what it actually weighs, you know? So there's no fault here. I mean, there's no fault in the crew who went out to weigh it. The fault is where things get lost over time. And it's kind of like when you have stories passed down from generation to generation. Little details get embellished or modified depending on the storyteller and the narrator. And if you start from the original story to one that's been passed down over the years, things are different. And it's a little bit of a different story than it was before. I mean, that's the nature of it. That's the nature of being human. But I do think that there is a lot of value to having this high degree of scientific and historical accuracy. And I'm going to tell you why. One is you want these legends to be reflective of what they really are and what they represent. And you don't want it to be embellished with falsehoods, because the falsehoods take away from the reality. And I guarantee you, anyone who has gone out and lifted the Husafell Stone, a 346-pound rock, natural rock, in Iceland, weathered by the elements, probably cold, it is still very tough. I mean, you picture a 350-pound individual condensed into the size of a rock. That is no easy feat. So that takes away nothing from a person's ability to, or a person's merit on having lifted it. But what about those individuals who are training to go out there, who are getting ready to spend a tremendous amount of resources to get to Iceland, to get to the Husafell cattle pen, and take hopefully a lap after picking it up? They're training thinking that it weighs 409 pounds, and until they can get to that 409-pound range on whatever stone simulation they have to work with at their own home gym, then they're not going to go. So when we have the real measurement, this gives those who aspire to be among the list of elite lifters who have done the feat, this gives them a concrete detail on how to measure their own training. And that is valuable because that eliminates some potential risk in their training and could possibly be adding a level of safety and security to preserving this person's health and vitality. If they're punishing their body going all the way for this 409 versus knowing to stop at roughly 350 pounds, that's a big difference. And that can definitely make or break, hopefully no pun intended, but that can definitely make or break a person's performance. And it can also, if things go wrong in training and prepping all the way to that 410 pounds nearly, that could put a dead stop, whether it's torn bicep, sprained hamstring, torn lat. So many things can happen with natural stone lifting. So I think it matters so much more in the long term to get past the points of pride and to understand that having the real data on things like this means so much more to the community as a whole versus trying to be so much of a gatekeeper on traditional things and to forbid the weighing of stuff like this. A lot of respect to the way the Stones of Strength podcast crew has gone about in navigating and addressing the public concerns surrounding the weighing of the Husafell. My hat's off to them because they involved Icelanders right off the bat. And I mean, if you don't want to step on anyone's toes, you make sure you have the local demographics on board with what you're doing. And even more so that you can do it in the most correct and respectful way. That is very important. And I know they did that. So I love that. One thing that I will say on the Husafell Stone and any other natural stone, any other stone, whether it's a documented historic stone or just a stone that you find out there in the wild, please be respectful of the stone. There's no reason to be pushing yourself to a point of failure where you have to launch that stone and not carefully set it down. And there's two reasons why I'm very big on this. One, when it comes to the Husafell Stone, it's preserving that trial of strength to endure and to last for many generations to come. You think about how long it's already been here, how many generations of people have known about it and tried it. To be that person that breaks the Husafell Stone, that is going to be a very bad day for that person. There's going to be a lot of guilt involved, and there's going to be a lot of shame cast on them for doing so. But let's say someone wants to go for a world record, and I'm looking at you pro athletes. If you're going to go out there, go for a world record, and if you're truly going to give it your all, you need to make sure that if you're going to a point of failure, if you're trying to get that one extra revolution or trying to edge out so-and-so on that top spot, you have someone with you, because I bet your ass you are getting it video recorded. So you already have a camera person out there. Have someone out there with a pad to follow you around. Someone who's well-versed in knowing how to spot when an athlete is going to drop the stone so they can throw that crash pad right under and preserve this relic for many years to come. And when it comes down to stones out in the wild, my favorite type of stone lifting, natural stones out in the wild, especially in areas where you can just feel that extra layer of connection to the earth around you. Set it down gently. If you're going to have to drop it from the top, unless it's a life or death scenario in an emergency situation, then of course, yes, your livelihood above the stone is just a rock at the end of the day. But be respectful of it. Set it down. And the second reason I say that, besides preserving it for others to try, if it's in the wild, that stone provides a very unique ecological niche for living creatures and organisms around it, whether it's flora and plant life or fauna, animals and insect life. When you turn over a natural stone in the wild, you're probably going to have to be brushing off bugs and spiders. That's a big one that I always am tickled by. Like, okay, how many spiders am I going to have to make sure don't crawl over my head when I shoulder this? But set it down gently. Put it back where you found it. There might have been a critter that was using it as shelter, and for its family. You don't want to mess with the lives of all those little ones. So be respectful of the stones. And I really, pro athletes need to be setting the standard. With all of their following, with all of the attention on them, if a pro athlete goes out, pushes themselves to the absolute limit and launches the stone, what example does that set to the hobbyists that want to go out there and try themselves. Like, oh, I saw so-and-so do it. That's okay. He's alpha as can be. I'm going to do the same thing too. No. Set the example, pro athletes, because you have so many more people looking up to you and watching you. If you're going to do any of these stones of strength world over, make sure if you're pushing yourself to where you think you're going to be dropping it, you have someone out there with a crash pad. All right? Bottom line. And on the Husafell specifically, I love how the esteemed members of the strength community who have gone out there and lifted the Husafell Stone were very eloquent in their support and their understanding of this weighing of the stone. I love how it was put. At the end of the day, the Husafell Stone is still 1 metric Husafell Stone. The 50, 60 pounds less does nothing to diminish the amount of effort and training and capability it takes to lift that thing. And I'm even more impressed with the ever-growing number of not just individuals, period, but of female athletes who are going out and doing the damn thing. This is something that, you know, it's such a high magnitude lift that it is an injustice to humanity as a whole for us to say that half of the population can't do it just by nature of your sex. Bullshit. And they are proving it every step of the way. So my hat's off to you ladies. Keep going out there. It is doable. And for those of you who are training for it, 346 pounds, baby. That's it. Not 409. When you get to that point, you know you can do it and get overhead. And when I heard that also, that it was 346, there was one person that I thought of right off the bat. Is Jacob Finnerty out of California. He is one of the guys. He had, I don't know if he still has, I'm sure he might, the block press world record. He was training himself to be the first person to lift and press the Husafell Stone up overhead. And now, knowing that it's at 346, I know that dude can press 346 pounds overhead. So maybe there's a time where Jacob goes and does it, but we'll see. Just know that, Big Jake, I was thinking of you, brother. It just seems that much more within your grasp. And whether or not you choose to do it, just know that the Texas Titan believes in you. All right. So that was the weighing of the Husafell Stone. On to the next topic. Coming up soon is the Giants Live Open and the World Deadlift Championships. That's September 5th in Birmingham. That is, of all the Giants Live competitions, that's my personal favorite. Some of you can already guess as to why. That competition has such a special place in my heart, in my soul. I have thought a lot about it lately. Just memories of my time. In 2021, in September or late August, I think it was early September, in Manchester, I was invited to deadlift at the Giants Live Open and the World Deadlift Championships. It was my Giants Live debut. And what a day. Of course, if you've been following me, you know that I was one of the select few that deadlifted 1,000 pounds. And that was a big lifetime goal for me that I achieved, to be one of the world's 1,000-pound deadlifters was a big lifetime achievement. And it adds to that list of things that I can close the chapter of my strongman life feeling good about. But I look back on that night with such fondness and such pride and such acknowledgement of how that night in Manchester in 2021 will forever go down as one of the greatest, most powerful, and most unbelievable nights in strength history, written in the chapters of the history books forever for posterity, because on that night, I was one of 7 total athletes who deadlifted 1,000 pounds or more. 7 athletes. And that is insane. 1,000 pounds is that threshold of when you get into, at least by pounds are concerned, you get to that 4-digit range. 4 digits and well above the triple body weight range. And I mean, it's 1,000 pounds. It's just insane. So symbolically, that is that threshold where you cross over and you really show the world what amazing feats of strength the human body is capable of. And that is incredible because it can empower not only yourself, but others to see that, to feel that, to know that it was done. And when you have one of your achievements transcend just the limits of your own person and possibly take shape into someone else, that is just such a profound phenomenon. And it's an amazing thing. And on that night, 7 of us did it. Me, Evan Singleton, Alexei Novikov, Pavlo Nakonechny, Adam Bishop, Nejmin Ambeskovic, and Ivan Makarov. 7 guys all deadlifted 1,000 pounds or more, making that a monumental moment in strength history forever. Whether or not that will be replicated in Birmingham coming up in a couple weeks, we will see. I can only hope, because it was just so freaking incredible, but that was monumental. And I've talked about it before, but one of the things that tickled me the most, if you listen to the show, that I'm a space nerd. On that night, a fan came up to me after the show and they told me, Gabe, what's just incredible to think about? I said, what? You are one of such a select few individuals who deadlifted 1,000 pounds. As of right now, at this moment in history, there have been more people to set foot on the moon than there have been to deadlift 1,000 pounds. And when I heard that, when I went back and looked at it, the actual fact checking, my mind was just blown away. It's blown away to know that there are more people who have traveled the 250,000+ miles to go from our rock to our satellite rock, set foot on that lunar regolith, and look back at Earth. There are more people to have done that than there are to have deadlifted 1,000 pounds at that point in history. And that was just one of the most incredible things to not just understand, but to feel. Talk about a prideful moment. So I can only hope that the glory of that night is replicated and even further intensified in this coming Deadlift World Championships at the Giants Live Open. So, which athletes are going to be there? There is a tremendous roster of talent. Do we see 7+ people do 1,000 pounds or more? I don't know. But there are 2 big figures that I want to talk about. Of course, the mountain, Hafthor Julius Bjornsson. He is the current world record holder at 510 kilograms. Can he do the 515? Can he get the new world record? That is yet to be seen. Hafthor lately has fallen a bit short of getting that world record, but he has gotten that bar well off the ground to a point of just needing it to get past the knees a little bit more and to go to that full hip extension. But the dude's the mountain for very real apparent reasons. He's huge. He's huge. Sometimes it's not clear whether he's 6'8", 6'9", or 6'10". But I have been standing next to him in person. The guy's a giant, and he weighs well over 440 pounds, well over 200 kilos. So he's genetically gifted to have maximum leverage on a barbell. Yes, it's a long way up for such a giant man, but he just has that big body. So Thor is capable of it. We've seen him lift the weight up off the ground. We know he has it in him. But there's another dark horse. A dark horse coming out of Mexico. Yes. Raul Flores, Tyson Strongman on Instagram. He came out and hit the world by storm last year, showing us he was indeed another 1,000-pound deadlifter. He was at the Giants Live World Deadlift Championships. He hit 1,000 pounds officially in competition, but that was not the end of his story. He is back to training, and just recently, Raul hit 470 kilos, 136 pounds, not for 1, not for 2, but for 3 repetitions. 470 kilos for 3. That's absolutely friggin' unheard of. Like, what? The amount of stress that 1,000 pounds for 1 puts on the body, let alone 1,036. But for him to do it for 3 reps, that is unheard of. And he is looking good. That was still several weeks out. He's done the competition before. He knows what that experience has felt like. He has conditioned himself all of last year to be used to pulling in this range, and still he has gotten to a point where he's still progressing. He is young. He is gifted, and he has the strength. He is the Mexican powerhouse coming to hit the World Deadlift Championships. I reached out to him, let him know that he has a supporter and a fan of me. And of course, one of the most profound things about being the first Mexican and Hispanic Latino to represent Mexico at World's Strongest Man was knowing that I would be the first of many and to inspire others. I'm not crediting his rise to fame or to notoriety to me, but knowing that there was going to be more that would follow, especially, I'm an American citizen. I was born and raised in Texas. Yes, I have the Mexican descent on my father's side. Yes, my ancestors came from Mexico. But to know that an actual born and raised native Mexican is going to the World Deadlift Championships and could possibly be taking the world record if all the cards fall right for him, that's just incredible. And it gives me an immense sense of cultural pride, and I can't wait to see what he does. So the top two that I'm personally watching are Raul Flores and Hafthor Bjornsson. But like I said, it's a big roster. You also have Austin Andrade, another big Tex-Mex powerhouse coming out of San Antonio. Nick Guardione will be there too, of course. They are the cuties, always holding each other's hands. You can't get one without the other, blah, blah, blah. Love those guys. But Nick's deadlift has been coming up steadily over the years, but I do think it is still a bit below this 1,000+ pound contesting range. I hope he proves me wrong, but in knowing Nick all these years, he still has some work to go. But Austin has already deadlifted over 1,000 pounds, and he's done it well. The guy was knocking on 1,000 pounds before he put a suit on, and then he put on a suit, and he is well within that range. So we'll see what Austin can do. He has proved that he can be a World's Strongest Man finalist, and he's done it well. So keep your eye on Andrade. Adam Bishop, one of my favorite rivals, going head-to-head with him, deadlifting over 1,000 pounds with him at the World Deadlift Championships in 2021, deadlifting head-to-head with him at the Shaw Classic multiple years. The guy is a deadlift machine. He was always one of my favorite athletes to go head-to-head with on the deadlift. And yeah, watch Bishop because he has been looking good in training too. Evan Singleton, he and I pulled 1,000 pounds together in Manchester as well. He's done it before. He can do it again. How far can he take it? Nothing against Evan. I don't see it going all the way to world record zone, and I don't think he does either. But I know he wants 1,000+ pounds. No athlete who is planning to continue to walk the path of a strongman wants to see their lifts decrease over the years. If he's done 1,000 pounds before, he's going to want to do at least that again. So eye on Evan. But the last big one that I am watching, my boy, Trey Mitchell. Trey is known for not wearing deadlift suits, and he has still put up some serious weight without those deadlift suits on. If Trey has been putting in work to wear a deadlift suit and to use it well, to really figure it out and have that add to his immense arsenal of deadlift power as it is, the sky's the limit. I mean, Big Thicket can be a dark horse, an underestimated athlete here on that front because he is just so strong. He is one of the few athletes that I have seen just continue to grow and physically expand throughout his entire career. And I've known him since he was just a wee sprouting strongman lad, a baby face and all. Now he's just this hulking, massive man and with power to match. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of those guys go head to head. But that's September 5th in Birmingham, the Giants Live Open and World Deadlift Championships. And tune in for that because you might hear a voice that you recognize. I have been very proud to be an extended voice of the Giants Live family, doing some voiceovers for all of the competitions this season. So keep your ears peeled. You might hear these reverberations on the airwaves. All right. The next topic that I want to talk about is something that I have become increasingly more aware of this, and not just growing older and more mature and being sensitive to other people around me, but also in becoming a parent. And I want to preface this topic, just like I am not saying it to demean, to come down on anyone. I'm simply pointing it out as an observation of what the current climate is surrounding it and how it affects multiple people. You're probably wondering what I'm about to get into, so let me just go ahead and talk about it. The topic is men being shirtless in public spaces. Now, hold on. Stay with me here. Like I said, I've become more and more aware of this topic as a whole in maturing in life, in growing older, and in having a parent, or in being a parent. My daughter has recently asked me in times that we've been out recreating, ambulating, going on walks, bike rides. She'll see a guy running. She's like, "Dad, why is that guy naked?" And then that's always followed up with, "Well, why can't the girls be naked when they run?" And it's such a hard thing to have all of these nuances and complexities instilled upon us by the current way our society is, to try to explain that to a girl. And like, first of all, like, no, they're not fully naked. It's just the top. But when they ask, well, why can't women do that too? It's just one of those strange parenting hurdles to try to explain that to a young individual. So my observations on this topic, on one side, there's the acknowledging that there is a demographic of individuals who are bothered by it to some degree. And it's not saying anything to, a specific person that they see running shirtless. It's more of like, well, why is it that this person can so freely express themselves and feel comfortable in their own body when they, whether it's a woman or someone else, cannot feel that same degree of comfort? And it's more likely being sensitive to the female population. Why can't I feel safe and comfortable in my body to go out there and run like this man is? And there's acknowledging that there are people, that there are women who, when they see a male shirtless in public spaces, it brings an amount of discomfort and it brings negative feelings and negative emotions. Being sensitive to that reality is very important, and it's not something that should just be brushed aside because, oh, you're just being a sissy, or you just need to be tougher. That's the way things are. No, it's none of that. You do have to be sensitive to those around you, because when people are hurting, when people are feeling uncomfortable, that is something that should be addressed. The wellness, the quality of life and the happiness of a community is a very important cornerstone of any population. So I acknowledge that there is a demographic that finds discomfort in the disparity between why men get to do this and why women don't get to do this. And then there's also acknowledging the fact that it is comfortable, especially in the summer. It can be very comfortable to have that evaporative cooling take place when your body is sweating, to feel the actual air brushing up against that sweat on your skin and not having any layers that are retaining the water, and you're actively cooling. It's a way to mitigate the heat. It's a way to feel free. And on top of that, it's a way to mentally feel free. To go out there and to be in your own body, in your own skin, in the elements, feeling the sun hit you, feeling the wind kiss you, feeling just yourself as a creature, as an animal of this planet in a more pure state, less covered up. That has got to be so liberating in a sense. So I acknowledge that. And even more so, I acknowledge that there are individuals who have worked so hard through their lives to transform their bodies from a state where they might not have had the confidence or the self-esteem, where they might have felt insecure about the way that they looked. And they worked so hard over years and years and years to shape their body into something that gives them more confidence, more freedom, to where they can finally feel secure in running without their shirt on. And there's someone who I consider a friend, and he is a very inspiring individual. Simon LeFontant, I might be getting his name wrong, but at Goliath GG on Instagram. I met him because he used to be the media person for Maxime Boudreau and Sam Bellevue out of Canada. And got to meet him over the years, and he was very big. He was obese, and he over the last several years has made some incredible shifts in his body, his training, his mindset, his methodology, his supplementation, and he shared every step along the way to where he went from this very unhealthy level of obesity. And now he is competing in bodybuilding, looking absolutely shredded with a phenomenal physique. And he posted the other day of just how he could not believe that the person he used to be like would be looking at him now. He feels so free, so achieved, so liberated. And I want that feeling to be experienced by those who are actively seeking it out and without it. So to tell someone like that who has worked so hard, it's not right for you to be out in public without a shirt on. That's wrong. That's wrong in itself too. But that should not be restricted to just males exclusively getting to feel that degree of liberation. So equality is the bottom line. That period. Equality is the bottom line. It's freaking 2026. All right? Women are half of the world's population. And they have proven that they are just as capable at so many things as men. There's no reason for there to be such disparity. But it's also, even though it's legal in just about every state for a woman to be out topless in public spaces, that's not going to happen because of the way it is perceived by other members of the society, men in particular. Equality is the bottom line. But social constructs allow that from not being the norm. Having comfort in one's body is a beautiful thing. And for a healthy individual, a healthy society, that should be something that is a widespread resource, accessible to all. That's what gives so much beauty to being human, is to feel comfort and confidence in yourself so that everything that you do in this life is further supported by your own self-belief, your own ability, and you're not holding yourself back. It sounds cheesy, but it can all be reflected on your own confidence in yourself. So, what do we do with this? What do we do with acknowledging that there are people who are bothered by seeing men shirtless in public spaces, that there should be equality, but there's not, and that it's such a taboo idea to entertain for women to be, topless in public as well. We're so far away from being where we need to for that equality to take place as a society. Men flat out need to change. Society needs to change. Perception of people being confident and comfortable in their own body needs to change. And that it's a systematic change. It is a systematic change in terms of not only does the adult and the mature crowd need to get on the ball with being more progressive on these fronts, but that level of change also goes down to how we shape the youth and their own social behaviors from their developmental years going forward. I'm not proposing anything radical. I'm merely just acknowledging where we are and what things would have to take place for there to be any semblance of equality on this front. Because a big portion of it is men need to change. Men, I know it's in our DNA. I'm a man. I went through puberty. I've went through all of the hormonal changes and knowing how the body pulls itself towards the opposite sex. That's very real too. But men also need to have more control on their animalistic urges. And that's a funny thing to hear myself say, but it is so true. Because yes, there are people, both men and women, who will go out into public society wanting to impress and to get the attention of whether it's the opposite sex, the same sex, or someone. There are those people. But the overwhelming majority of people, when they go out to exercise, to be in public, it is for themselves. They are not dressing up for someone else. They are dressing up for themselves, for their own quality of life, for their own enjoyment and satisfaction. And guys, men, I'm talking to you. You need to understand that the world does not revolve and shape itself for you. Women do not dress themselves for you and your perception. That is just not the case. As much as you and your alpha throne want to think about that, that is not the case. And when women are perceived in this, I want to call it the animalistic way, it makes it harder for them to feel comfortable in their bodies. And that is a social injustice to half of the population. So in talking about this, why do I even have this on the podcast? One, it's because it is a complex topic that I have had to find a way to convey its meaning and the disparity to my young child. Like, why, Dad, is that guy running around naked, and why can't women do that? And that is a tough hurdle in itself. But in reflecting that where we are right now is leaving certain people feeling like there is injustice, like there is disparity, like there is hypocrisy and double standards, and there is not equality. And when there is pain felt in a community, the society, the population should, by human virtue, try to find ways to push that bar forward in a more progressive, a more conducive, a more caring and thoughtful way to diminish the negativity. Like I said, equality is the bottom line. It should always be the bottom line. It's 2026. I don't care what things are coming from the toxic sectors of society. Women are half the population. Men are half the population. It's time to recognize that and move beyond archaic mindsets, patriarchal mindsets, and think about how we want the future to reflect what it is to be human, what it is to coexist and be a thriving society of humans on this rock and hopefully other rocks throughout the solar system and galaxy in centuries to come. But I apologize if that topic made anyone feel bad or negatively. It is not that. It is quite the opposite. It is a desire for change, a desire for improvement, and an awareness of a disparity that is ongoing. I myself, I love when I can free myself, when I can run around shirtless. It feels so much better. I'm always a very hot individual, especially in summer, to have no shirt and to run, or just to be outside, to feel the sun on my own skin, and not have that limited to just being at the beach or a pool. It's a special thing, and people should be able to enjoy that, because that is the human experience. And to take away the human experience from people is wrong, just by nature. So let that be what you make of it, but know that there is room for improvement on the society front, especially for men. All right, moving on to the next topic. Q&A section right here. I had someone reach out to me on Instagram. JT Larson, at JT Larson 36 on Instagram, says, I have a 13-inch Hummer tire deadlift coming up in competition, and I only have power bars and bumper plates available. How can I train for this effectively with what I have? Elevated deadlifts are very important because it allows you to work on partial aspects of your deadlift range of motion. You can have a weak point at the knees, below the knees, above the knees, and working these elevated deadlifts is huge. Not to mention, when you have them coming up in competition, you get to deadlift on really badass apparatuses like a Hummer tire deadlift or anything with big wheels on it, and it just feels so cool. I mean, if you've seen my Instagram videos, you know that I love deadlifting on tires. When I pull out the wheels, it's just better. It is. But if you don't have those wheels, how can you replicate it? And first thing, people think of doing rack pulls, putting the spotter arms on their racks a little bit higher so that they can work on it. That's better than nothing. It is. But the one thing that it does not train is the weights at the end of the bar leaving the ground. It trains the bar leaving the spotter arm. So where the bar is resting is much more narrower than the footprint of where the weights would be resting on the ground. And so if you exclusively train rack pulls, when you get to that competition and you're training the full bar resting on the ground, it's going to feel different, and that might make or break your performance. So if you have just power bars and bumper plates available, what I would recommend that you do is fashion yourself some blocks to deadlift on, whether it is stacking up some of those plates or some mats to give you that 13-inch height, or physically going to a home improvement store like Lowe's or Home Depot, grabbing some lumber and making yourself some mats or some blocks to pull off of. That is such, even if you have to spend some money on it, it will pay for itself in the levels of your deadlift you have now unlocked in your ability to train. It is so much better than a rack pull, again, because now the bar gets to bend if it's a barbell and flex in ways where the bottoms of the wheels or the bottoms of the plates are what leave the ground versus the bars on the spotter arms. They feel totally different. And that is something that you want to replicate. So you can do it with what you have, JT. You can do it with bumper plates. You can do it with plates. You can do it with bricks. You can do it with wood planks. You can likely do it with what you have at your gym already. But if you want to go above and beyond, get some lumber, fashion yourself some blocks, make them sturdy, make them secure, because they will take a beating, but that investment will pay for itself. And you don't have to buy any of these big name brand things like that are fabricated from metal. You can if you want, but if you want a quick solution to get it done, replicate it to where the ends of your weights, your plates, are leaving the ground on a raised surface versus trying to do a rack pull. Rack pull is better than nothing. If you don't have any way to make the mats, train the rack pulls. Make sure you're at that 13-inch height. But some type of mat or block will pay off in dividends big time. All right. If you have any questions that you want me to get at on a podcast episode here on Titan Talk, reach out to me on Instagram. I love seeing the messages. I love when I get to dive into someone's question and give it more than just a quick 1 or 2 line response in a DM, and I can talk about it here. But JT, I wish you all the best in your upcoming competition. And for those of you who have some questions, reach out to me at Texas Titan Gabe on Instagram with them, and they might make their way to a Titan Talk episode. And now it's time for a space out. A lot has happened in space over the last few weeks. Since we talked on the last episode, Starship Flight 13 was put on hold after an aborted mission. The next day after I recorded the last episode, Flight 13 for Starship went off without a hitch, launching out of Boca Chica in Brownsville and the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, the Gulf of Mexico. I don't care what you say. No disrespect to you, but it is the Gulf of Mexico, not the Gulf of America. And Starship Flight 13 went off without a hitch. It was incredible. The stage set, first of all, one of the immediate things that I noticed right off the bat in that coverage, this was the V3 version of Starship. When you see that rocket take off compared to previous iterations of the vehicle, Starship, the booster and the upper stage, cleared the launch pad so quickly. It was incredible. In just a matter of seconds, that towering skyscraper of a vehicle was already off the pad and heading up towards space. Whereas previous iterations, the V2 and the V1 would have been sitting there slowly making its way to take off and then finally breaking free of the launch pad. It was over in the blink of an eye where it cleared the Mechzilla launch pad. So that was the first thing. Stage separation went off without a hitch. As the booster went back down to the Gulf of Mexico, that was where one thing could have gone a little bit better. It was supposed to be a soft splashdown. I think one of the engines didn't relight, and it came down a little bit harder. So it was not a full hard splashdown, but it certainly wasn't a soft splashdown. And, of course, rapid unscheduled disassembly, the RUD of the super heavy booster happened. But Starship cruised on into space. It relit its Raptor engines in vacuum, did so quite well, and it deployed the next generation of Starship or of Starlink satellites. And these satellites were able to look back and image Starship while it was in orbit as they were coming out of its Pez dispenser bay to see how the heat shield held up, to see the ship. And there's some truly phenomenal shots of this vehicle as it's in space from that third-person perspective, a little bit further away. Mind you, this thing is hurtling around at orbital speeds, 20,000 plus miles per hour around the Earth. And to see such grace reflected in images was beautiful. And then, after making its partial voyage around the Earth, it came and re-entered in the atmosphere and was going for a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And this is where things, of course, get beautiful with all those shots from Starlink of the plasma burning around the vehicle. Beautiful hues of pink and orange and purple as it pushes through those the atmosphere and all that compression turning into plasma, shaving down speed, orbital speeds coming down to well below subsonic speeds. That was incredible. And the best part of Starship Flight 13 was as the vehicle came down to the Indian Ocean, you already have all of these drones and buoys set up to catch it on camera. The vehicle did a soft splashdown. It controlled its descent, and it was such a soft splashdown. The vehicle was hovering for a bit, and then it just sat and flopped down in the ocean. And it didn't blow up. Completely intact. The Starship was just floating there in the Indian Ocean and looked great. The heat shield showed such little damage. And this massive vehicle sat there for days, floating in the ocean, to where SpaceX is like, you know what? This is the first vehicle we can salvage. We can get a recovery team to go out there and tow it and bring it all the way back to base. We can study it and get even more data. And that's exactly what they did. As far as you know, at the time of recording this episode, there is the recovery team still taking Starship around the world, bringing it back to base so that it can be studied, and the next iterations of the vehicle can take all of that data, so much more data versus if it had to blow up. But it is the first recovered upper stage, and that is amazing to just see it floating there in the ocean. It was truly special, and it felt like a monumental achievement. And word on the street is that on Flight 14 will be the first flight to feature an upper stage Starship catch at the launch tower. There is some rumblings that it'll be a dual catch, the Super Heavy booster and the upper stage. It has not been confirmed if it's going to be the booster as well, but the FAA filed flight profile shows a recovery of the upper stage vehicle, and that's amazing. On to the next one. It made headlines. SpaceX had a happening to where a Falcon 9 upper stage had gone out of its controlled orbit of Earth and was sent on an eventual collision trajectory with the moon. And media likes to blow up a lot of this stuff. Well, maybe blow up isn't the right phrase to use, but media likes to put all this stuff on blast and blow it out of proportion. SpaceX crashes rocket into the moon, and it caused a whole bunch of hubbub and chaos. And I can understand the community getting angered at the idea of an increasing amount of space debris and the consequences of it, littering and defacing the lunar surface. But it did get blown out of proportion, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why. One thing to remember is that the moon does not have an atmosphere. It does not have the same cushion of gases that the Earth does, to where when meteorites or when objects come from outer space and are on a collision course with the lunar body, it doesn't have anything to slow it down. So objects are coming in at maximum speeds without any slowdown. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is that the lunar surface is pockmarked by collisions regularly. That's why we see nothing but craters up there. There's nothing to slow it down. So the Falcon 9 upper stage, the little capsule that sits on top of the Falcon 9 rocket, was hurling towards the lunar surface at about 5,400 miles per hour. Pretty fast. And it wound up making a crater about 100 feet in diameter on the lunar surface. Even that was not able to be imaged by 99.999% of telescopic cameras that were pointed at the moon, because it's such a small occurrence. An upper stage part of a vehicle, 100-foot crater, and you still couldn't find it. There was a lot of AI-generated simulations of to what it looked like, but no real video, because it was that small of an occurrence. And there was a lot of upset fervor about this. Well, look what SpaceX is doing. It's crashing things into the moon. The reality is that all the way through early spacefaring times, like in the 50s, NASA has been purposefully colliding objects with the moon for the sake of collecting data as to what happens when a foreign body impacts the lunar surface. How does the lunar regolith, the the debris, the dirt, the sand, the dust, how does that react to the impact, especially because, one, the moon has such low gravity compared to Earth, and two, it doesn't have the atmosphere. So this provided a very unique opportunity for data to be collected yet again with a fast-moving vehicle impacting the surface, and the data collected is so valuable as we pave the way for lunar settlement, for lunar colonization. We need to know what risks astronauts and colonists have there for the impacts that are sure to happen just by nature of the moon not having a protective barrier of atmosphere. So there was a lot of good that came from this, and it did get blown out of proportion, but I do want to highlight the very real and ever-present growing difficulty is that space trash, as we continue to advance space exploration, is something we need to have procedures and policies implemented to mitigate the amount of risk that they pose to ourselves as we move forward out beyond Earth into the stars. So very valid concerns, but it's not as bad as the media portrayed it. There was a lot of good data that came back from studying that impact, especially from the current surveying satellites around the moon by many different nations that were able to image the impact site and see the aftermath and study it. A lot of scientific good came from that, and it's something that NASA has been doing for a very long time on its own. Another big happening, the solar eclipse of 2026 just took place. And we did not get to see it in the States this time. It would have been a partial eclipse, but over in Europe, Spain, France, any parts in Europe were able to see totality. Their section of the Earth went dark. And solar eclipses are just an incredible thing to where the sun goes dark for a second because the moon is so perfectly lined up in its orbit around Earth, in the sun's position in our sky. To see the corona of the sun etched behind a dark sphere of the moon. It's a cosmic event that brings people worldwide together in awe, in fascination, in realizing that we are so small and infinitesimal in the scope of the cosmos. And for these grand things to be happening just by coincidence of physics lining these cosmic bodies up, it's a point of reflection for us to understand what it means to be human, what it means for us to feel small, what it means to understand that our lives are supported by the reality of us being in this Goldilocks zone from our star. It's a point of reflection, and it makes me think of how in the pre-scientific times, when early primal societies were able to see these solar eclipses, what sort of thoughts and existential mindsets were taking place in the midst of this unexplainable phenomenon. It's very easy to see how things like different religions and stories, gods, goddesses, angels, demons, how all of this was shaped in trying to understand and make sense of this. But what a happening to have the world come together. I really look forward to the next solar eclipse that we get to experience here in the States. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing. Lastly, on Space Out, and this brings it down to the scope of the Earth, I have said that I don't want to delve into anything political on Titan Talk. And there might be some people that think what I'm about to talk about is political. No, it is so much more than politics. Right now, there is a tragic, a destructive, and a heinous project that is going on in our own national parks here in the United States. I'm talking about the Big Bend Wall Project that is taking place, put forth by the administration. The Trump administration has put border security at the forefront of their agenda. I get it. I understand. Border security is important. But Big Bend is an American jewel. It is a Texan jewel. It is my most favorite place in Texas. It is beautiful, pristine desert wilderness with a vast array of different ecosystems, whether it's pure desert, whether it's towering 1,000-foot canyons, whether it's volcanic mountains, whether it's archaeological sites, whether it's fossils, whether it's wildlife like bears, coyotes, falcons, mountain lions, whatever. There are so many things that come together and make Big Bend, that region of Texas, the border shared with Mexico along the Rio Grande River that makes it so special. I have felt a spiritual awakening at that place just by nature of the beauty there. And the administration thinks it's a good idea to put a wall through it. And they've changed their story, whether it's going to be a 30-foot steel wall or whether it's going to be a quote-unquote smart wall, which we have no freaking idea what that actually means. But what it does mean is that there are bulldozers and construction equipment tearing away desert ecosystems and putting a dividing wall and roads right through our national park, our public land, our havens of natural beauty that should be preserved for generations to come. And folks, I am pissed. I am pissed because that is one of the most special places on this planet, in my opinion. And it is being desecrated. It is being torn apart. It is being decimated. And it pisses me the hell off. Because the means in which the administration has gone to secure this construction project have bypassed all of the legal procedures in place. It has been behind the door negotiations. It has been contributions to construction agencies without any congressional oversight. And there is no public knowledge as to what the exact means of this is, as to what exactly is happening. Border Patrol saying one thing, the administration saying another. The public has no idea what's happening. All we know is that there's bulldozers knocking away desert ecosystem and destroying the environment. On top of that, there is going to be fresh sections of mountain that are going to be dynamited to make way for a new road. And it is complete, utter bullshit. I don't like cursing on this show, but it is. And you can tell that I'm livid. It's a special place to me. It's a special place I've gotten to share with my wife and daughter and my family. And it was the first place I ever saw a black bear in the wild. And black bears used to not be native. I mean, for a long time, they disappeared from Big Bend. And somewhere over the course of the last half century, black bears, the Mexican black bear, found a way to traverse 100 miles of desert from Mexico northward to get into Big Bend. And that is because the ecosystem remained connected. There were no big barriers or walls prohibiting a large carnivore from doing so. And that also the mountain lions that are there, the same thing for them. They are the apex predator of Big Bend. You put a wall, you make it so hard for large fauna to move back and forth. There are Native American archaeological sites that we are still trying to learn more and to dig more and to excavate more in a protective way. And those sites are going to be dynamited straight through. They're going to be desecrated. And that violates protective laws around archaeological sites, especially for Native Americans. Now, Big Bend, the border is there. But the Rio Grande River, the natural border, it is surrounded by extremely tough and wild desert. Very hard to cross on its own, not to mention the over 1,000-foot towering canyon cliffs, like around Santa Elena Canyon, where the construction is taking place. It is physically hard and dangerous for people to cross there, which is why, out of all of the border, the Big Bend area only sees 0.045% of all border crossings occur there. That is less than 0.1%. That is less than 0.5% of all border crossings occur there. And I'll tell you why. One, because of the desert nature of itself, the 1,000-foot canyon cliffs, the rough environment as it is, the lack of water resources. But two, because it was already very secure. Border Patrol already had these areas of powdery, dusty dirt roads where I have physically seen these trucks towing a tire behind their vehicle to make the surface of that road easy to show when footprints have been taken over it. And it was something that was surveyed and looked over daily by CBP officers. So the means were already there, especially when it is such a low occurrence of border crossings. Big Bend was one of the most secure sections of our border. There is absolutely no reason why illegal measures should be taking place to desecrate our natural public lands. A national park is destroying ecosystems, and of all the ecosystems there are, desert ecosystems are one of the hardest to regenerate. I can be an optimist and think of a time in the future where we do away with all the damage that was done. but it will take the environment so much time to get back to where it naturally is. And it makes me very sad. It makes me feel not hopeless, but it makes me feel disappointed in a monumental sense. Is how could we have allowed it to get to this point? How could we have failed so much as a society that the evils are allowed to do this to our natural legacy? It is literally destroying the wild part of the earth. And this is not me being a hippie tree hugger. It's the reality. It is one of the gems of not just Texas, but the United States. And it is under threat. It is under siege, and it is being desecrated by political corruption and by people in the Texas government who claim to be Texans, who love the state, and yet are so quick to allow this to take place. So it's not just a Texas issue, like I said. It's a national park. It's public lands. You don't have to be a Texan to call your elected representatives and your elected officials and tell you how bothered you are by what's going on. Call them. Call their office. Sign the petitions. Get to know the region, and then make your vote count when it counts. Make your vote count for those who will protect the natural legacy of this earth, of this country, and make it as prosperity for generations to come. It's not political, you guys. It's called being a caring human. It's called being real and not out of touch. If we don't protect these, who will? It's not going to be the animals. I've already been heartbroken by seeing the javelinas, the peccaries, the coyotes, the mountain lions, looking in the middle of this bulldozed road. Like, where the hell do I go? So yeah, I'm pissed. And that doesn't even touch on any of the other things that are messed up, because there's so much messed up stuff happening right now. But I have a very deep personal connection to my experiences in Big Bend, and that is something that I want people to be able to experience for many, many years and generations to come. So I am ever hopeful. I believe in goodness. I believe in compassion. I believe in hope. And with all those positive forces, I know that we can make something good come from this shadow being cast on this part of our country. All right. If that pissed any of y'all off, sorry, but I'm not sorry. That's just something that needs to be felt and changed, because it is wrong. But that is this episode of Titan Talk. I look forward to whenever the next one comes. I'm going to try to keep these on a bi-weekly basis. And we'll see what the future has in store and all the good things that are happening in the strength world, the greater world, and the cosmos out there. If you are interested in getting involved in Titan Talk to any capacity as a fan or as a sponsor, reach out to me. I've got room for you, and I would love to have you collaborate and help grow this show to its full illustrious potential. Until the next time, my friends, stay hungry, stay curious, and in the words of the great Star-Lord Neil deGrasse Tyson, keep looking up. All right, y'all. Until next time, be well.